welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm a film school graduate, screenwriter, and lover of horror in all its forms. Today's episode is special. We're doing a 30-minute deep dive into Ari Aster's Hereditary, a film I believe will be studied in film schools for decades to come. This isn't your average review. We're analyzing every thread of this film: structure, character arcs, cinematography, mise-en-scene, editing rhythm, sound design, including the infrasound, symbolism, and the broader cultural impact. So if you're into film theory, horror mechanics, or just love when movies give you that crawling feeling under your skin, buckle up. And yes, full spoilers ahead. Background and context. Let's begin by setting the stage. Hereditary premiered at Sundance in January 2018 and immediately caught the attention of critics. Distributed by A24, the film was Ari Aster's future debut, though his earlier shorts, like The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, had already shown a willingness to dissect familial dysfunction with surgical cruelty. A24 positioned the film as a new evolution in horror, something we now call elevated horror. Personally, I have a complicated relationship with that term, but it's undeniable that Hereditary demanded something different from audiences. It didn't spoon-feed its scares, it made you earn them, through discomfort, silence, and dread. In many ways, Hereditary feels like a response to decades of jump-scare-driven horror. It's slower, more deliberate, more interested in human grief than demonic lore, and yet, that's what makes the demon all the more terrifying. The cultural backdrop matters too. In the late 2010s, horror started taking itself more seriously. The Witch, It Follows, The Babadook. These films weren't just scary, they were meditations on trauma, repression, and psychological decay. Hereditary takes all of that and adds the crushing inevitability of fate. Story structure and thematic core. Let's talk structure. Hereditary follows a deceptively simple 3-act format. Act 1, the death of Annie's mother, Ellen. We're introduced to the Graham family's fragile emotional ecosystem. Act 2, Charlie's sudden death fractures the family. Annie spirals, supernatural hints begin to accumulate. Act 3, the truth is revealed. A cult, a demon, a ritual. Peter is the target, fate is fulfilled. But here's the twist. This structure is cyclical, not linear. Everything that happens has already been set in motion before the film begins. The death of Ellen is the first domino, but the ritual, the manipulation, began decades earlier. This is where the film's title becomes literal. This isn't just a story about inherited trauma, it's about inheriting fate. Aster plays with expectations in brilliant ways. For the first 45 minutes, you think this is a family drama. Then Charlie dies, and the genre shifts violently. That moment, her decapitation, is the film's psychological breaking point. Everything after that is spiritual rot. Thematically, the film is rooted in grief, guilt, and the horror of powerlessness. Annie's family is collapsing not just because of supernatural interference, but because they were already broken. The cult didn't corrupt them, it just exploited what was already there. Deep character study. Let's go deeper into the characters. Annie Graham, played by Toni Collette. Annie is one of the most complex female characters in horror history. She's not a victim. She's not a final girl. She's not even a villain. She's a mother unraveling, piece by piece. What makes Annie compelling is her artistry. Her miniatures are more than a quirk, they're her attempt to make sense of chaos. In constructing scenes from her life, she's trying to control grief. But there's an eerie detachment, too. When she reconstructs the scene of Charlie's death, complete with Peter's decapitated sister in the road, it's less about mourning, more about processing through removal. And Toni Collette's performance? Raw, terrifying, vulnerable. This isn't just screaming or crying. This is grief made physical, knotted in the throat, etched into the face. Peter Graham, played by Alex Wolff. Peter is the emotional punching bag of the film. From the moment Charlie dies, he's frozen, dissociative. That silent car ride home is unbearable. Wolff barely moves his face, and yet you feel the implosion inside. Peter's journey is not one of survival, but surrender. He doesn't fight back, he breaks, slowly. The final image of him as Paimon is one of a total psychological erasure. Charlie, played by Millie Shapiro. Charlie is born wrong. That's not a judgment, it's the point. Her physicality, her distance from the world, her unsettling behavior, all of it reflects her being a mismatched vessel for something otherworldly. There's a tragic irony here, too. She was never meant to be. Ellen tried to implant Payman into her, but it didn't take. Her death isn't just tragic, it's necessary for the cult's plan. Steve Graham, played by Gabriel Byrne. Steve is the audience surrogate, the rational, calm center in a storm of hysteria. But he's also passive, emotionally distant. He's not a bad father, just one who can't confront the horror taking shape. His death, burning alive after Annie tries to destroy the spellbook, is poetic. He becomes the sacrifice, despite trying so hard to stay above the fray. Cinematography and formalism. The cinematographer's effort is essential to Hereditary's impact. Let's talk technique. Dollhouse shots. Many scenes are framed like miniatures, as if the characters are inside one of Annie's models. The camera moves outside in rather than over the shoulder. It makes us voyeurs, like the cult watching from the shadows. Shifts in lighting. Note how interiors are lit cold with natural light seeping through. But in the treehouse or during rituals, there's a warm, almost golden glow. It's not comforting, it's uncanny, suggesting something ancient and sacred. Use of focus. Background elements shift subtly in and out of focus. A person in the corner, a shadow on the ceiling. Our eyes aren't guided by cuts, but by composition. Aster forces you to scan the frame. That's where the real terror hides. Night scenes. Rather than pitch black, the cinematographer uses crushed shadows and blue tones. This makes it easier to conceal horror. You rewatch the film and suddenly see faces you missed the first time. Sound design, infrasound, and auditory terror. This section is crucial. Sound in Hereditary is violence, not because it's loud, but because it targets your central nervous system. Let's break down key elements. Element 1, infrasound. Infrasound, low-frequency sound below 20 Hz, causes discomfort without being audible. It's used in Hereditary to build a sense of dread. You won't hear it, but your body reacts. Elevated heart rate, chest tightness, dizziness. These tones are layered under quiet scenes. Annie in her studio, Peter alone in bed. You feel like someone is watching. Something wrong. Number 2, Charlie's Click. An iconic motif. It starts innocuously, just a tick. But once Charlie dies, it becomes a ghostly echo, a marker of possession. Hearing it late in the film is a punch to the gut. Element number 3, score by Colin Stetson. Stetson's avant-garde saxophone techniques produce an industrial atonal nightmare of a score. There's no melody, just drones, scraping noises, gasps of breath. The score doesn't guide emotion, it undermines it. It tells you whatever you're feeling, it's about to get worse. Editing, rhythm, and perspective. The editing by Lucien Johnston is meticulously unflashy. Pacing is glacial. Aster wants you to sit in the moment, to stew. That makes moments of violence all the more jarring. Transitions often happen without cuts. Instead, we dissolve from day to night, reality to hallucination. Time becomes elastic. It mirrors the character's disorientation. Perspective. The camera stays distant. We're not inside the characters' heads. We're watching from the walls, like the cult. This is voyeuristic horror. Themes of grief, fate, and maternal horror. Let's go full on film school. Hereditary is maternal horror. Like Rosemary's Baby or The Babadook, it explores motherhood as trauma. Annie's entire life has been shaped by her mother's secret plans. She's not a parent, she's a pawn. Grief here is parasitic. It consumes logic. Annie goes from rational to ritualist not because she's irrational, but because grief demands meaning. Seances give structure to her mourning. And then there's fate. This is a deterministic world. Free will doesn't exist. Every choice the Grahams make brings them closer to their doom, not because they're foolish, but because they were doomed at birth. Symbolism, religious undertones, and cult mythology. The Payman sigil. A recurring motif, it suggests the cult's omnipresence. You can spot it on telephone poles, bracelets, and walls. It's their calling card. Decapitation. The film's recurring violence is always decapitation. Symbolically, it's the severing of ego, reason, and identity. It's also a nod to traditional occult offerings. Treehouse equals temple. It's high, sacred, warm lit. By the end, it becomes a throne room for Paimon. Aster inverts the innocence of childhood. Charlie's hideout becomes the demon's altar. Nudity and cultists. It's not sexual, it's ritualistic, stripping away of earthly identity. In their nakedness, they're reborn, pure worshippers. Final act analysis and ending decoding. Peter's possession isn't dramatic, it's quiet surrender. When he jumps from the window, the soul leaves, not just Charlie's, but Peter's humanity. The cult's arrival in the treehouse is wordless. Joyful, it's not horror to them, it's ascension. And Peter's face at the end? Not evil, just empty. The final horror isn't that a demon wins, it's that the person we followed is gone. Mind, body, soul. Scene Analysis Part 1. The Funeral. Let's start breaking down some pivotal scenes in granular detail. First up, Ellen's funeral. This is the film's inciting incident. Ellen, the matriarch, has died, and the tone of the funeral already hints that something is off. Annie's eulogy is awkward, passive-aggressive, and reveals how little she truly knew her mother. The framing here is essential. The camera keeps its distance as if we're intruding. The mourners feel wrong, slightly too still, too quiet. Later we'll recognize some of these faces as cultists, but in the moment, Aster uses discomfort as a tool. No jump scares, just unease. Notable details. We see Joan in the background, though we don't know her yet. Ellen's necklace, the Payman symbol, is visible, establishing early mythology. Annie's body language is strained, clenched hands, fake smiles. This scene plants the seeds of emotional detachment and spiritual inheritance that will define the rest of the story. Scene Analysis Part 2. Charlie's Death. Arguably the most shocking moment in the film and in modern horror, not just because of what happens, but how it's shot. Let's set the stage. Charlie is having an allergic reaction. Peter is racing her to the hospital. As she sticks her head out the window to breathe, her head is instantly severed by a telephone pole. Here's what makes this brilliant. There's no score during the actual incident, just silence. No slow motion, no sound design swells, it happens instantly, brutally, realistically. Cut to Peter's face. The horror isn't in the gore, it's in his refusal to look, his quiet shock, his denial. Then, Aster holds the shot. Peter lays awake in bed, paralyzed. We hear Annie discover the body, but we don't see it. It's all audio. Screams, shattered moaning. Later, we finally see the head, crawling with ants rotting by the roadside. But by then, we're already devastated. The scene has themes of the irreversibility of trauma, the failure of protection, Peter can't save his sister, the randomness of horror, there's no foreshadowing for a death this cruel. Scene Analysis Part 3, The Dinner Table. A masterclass in emotional horror. This scene needs no ghosts, no demons, just unresolved grief. The camera holds steady as Annie, Peter, and Steve eat in silence. The tension is unbearable. When Annie finally lashes out, "Don't you swear at me, you little..." It's like a possession in itself. Her voice changes, her words feel ancient, primal. Aster shoots it with naturalistic lighting. The table is wide, emphasizing distance. No music, just ticking clocks, silverware scraping, and the sharp bite of emotion. This scene could stand alone as a short film about grief, and Toni Collette's performance here is the scene that should have earned her every award. Motifs in this scene? Unspoken blame, Peter knows he killed Charlie. Emotional repression, Steve can't even look up, and the family has a powder keg ready to explode. Scene Analysis Part 4, The Seance. This is the turning point from psychological to supernatural horror. Joan introduces Annie to spirit communication. At first, we see this as Annie's desperation to reconnect with Charlie, but there are deeper currents here. The seance table is round, an inversion of the dinner table. Now, instead of separation, it's ritual unity. Joan uses language, symbols, and chants, all hallmarks of occult summoning. Annie doesn't realize she's being used as a conduit. What's fascinating is how this scene mirrors religious ecstasy. Annie is crying, laughing, terrified, elated, as if encountering a divine presence. The film blurs the line between grief and spiritual awakening. Subtle horror elements. A glass moves before Joan says anything. Light flares in the background, subtle indicators of Payman's presence. Peter looks disturbed as if something is already watching him. Scene Analysis Part 5. Annie's Nightmare and Revelation. One of the most disturbing sequences is a dream, or hallucination, where Annie tells Peter she never wanted to be his mother. She wakes up within the dream, then she pours paint thinner on both of them and lights a match. This scene is brilliant for several reasons. 1. Layered dream logic. The viewer becomes disoriented as dreams blend into reality. 2. Repetition of fire. A recurring motif. Fire destroys, purifies, and awakens the demonic. Reason number 3. Thematic link to Ellen. Annie is becoming like her mother, unable to control her darkness. Shortly afterward, Annie discovers Ellen's body in the attic. Headless, rotting, posed in ritualistic prayer. This is where supernatural horror becomes undeniable. Extended symbolism and color theory. Let's revisit some visual motifs with a more formalist lens. Color palette. Earth tones. Browns, tans, grays, grounding us in the natural domestic world. Pale blue/green. Used during supernatural encounters, often during day scenes. It evokes a spiritual coldness. Red/orange. Fire, possession, climax. Used sparingly, but when it appears, it means something. Light as presence. A floating orb of light is seen multiple times, passing through windows or into characters. This is not random. It represents the movement of the demonic essence. It travels from Charlie to Annie to Peter. Miniatures versus reality. Annie's miniatures begin as therapy, reconstructions of past trauma, but as the film progresses, they become prophetic. She creates a model of her own decapitation before it happens. The implication? She's not expressing, she's channeling. Occult theory and the Payman Lore. Let's go full esoteric. Payman is a real entity from a 17th century book cataloging demons. He is one of the kings of hell, loyal to Lucifer. Here's what's relevant. 1. He requires a male host. 2. He brings knowledge, riches, and devotion. 3. He is often associated with music, hence the faint sounds of chimes in the final scenes. 4. He's usually preceded by a great noise or procession. The cult's entire ritual mirrors this lore. They behead the previous vessel, Charlie, prepare Peter as the new body, and offer homage via gold, effigies, and chanting. The final line, "Hail Payman," isn't scary because it's evil, it's scary because it's sincere. In this segment, we'll be going over the score by Colin Stetson. Intro to the score. Let's take a dedicated few minutes now to talk about something that often goes unnoticed on first viewing, but is absolutely critical to the DNA of Hereditary. I'm talking about the score. Composed by Colin Stetson, the music in Hereditary isn't just atmospheric dressing, it's an active force as essential to the horror as the editing, acting, or story. It's primal, it's suffocating, and like everything in the film, it operates just under the skin. About the composer, Colin Stetson. Before we dig into the score's mechanics, let's talk about the mind behind it. Colin Stetson is not a traditional film composer. He's a saxophonist known for his solo work as well as collaborations with bands like Arcade Fire and Bon Iver. But what sets him apart is his experimental playing style. Stetson uses extended techniques on his instruments. Circular breathing to sustain impossibly long phrases. Multiphonics that let him create chords on a monophonic instrument. Key clicks, valve sounds, and mic'd up breathing as rhythm. The result that even his unscored raw performances already sound like they come from another world, alien, organic, and deeply unsettling. When Aster chose Stetson, he didn't just want a horror score. He wanted a texture, a living entity that could surround the viewer without ever quite announcing itself. What makes this score different? Unlike a lot of horror scores that use screeching violins or sharp stings, Hereditary uses droning brass and woodwind textures, organic pulses that feel like breathing, dissonant chorale layers, sometimes human, sometimes sounding demonic, and almost no melody. There's no theme to hum, no musical motif to latch onto. This lack of melody is intentional. It creates a musical void, a space where meaning slips away and you're left with just sensation. That mirrors the emotional state of the characters: disconnected, haunted, lost. In many scenes, the score doesn't support the emotion, it disrupts it. When Annie is crying, you hear abrasive mechanical textures. When Peter is silent and numb, the score hisses like a whisper you can't quite make out. It's not comfort, it's not clarity, it's psychological interference. Cataloging the musical elements. Let's break down some core elements that define the Hereditary score. Number 1. Dissonant harmonics. Stetson stacks overtones, high whistling frequencies that sound off to the human ear. These tones don't resolve. They shimmer just slightly out of phase, creating an unsteady, anxious feeling. Think of this as musical vertigo. Nothing settles. Number 2. Air and breath. Much of the score is made from human air, not singing but breathing, hissing, gasping. Sometimes it sounds like Annie hyperventilating. Other times it resembles the breath of something not quite human. Stetson intentionally recorded close-mic'd breath patterns, giving the sensation that something is just behind you, or inside you. Number 3. Low-end subtones. Bass is used like a weapon in Hereditary. Some cues drop into near subsonic levels. Combined with infrasound, this creates physical dread. You might not hear it clearly, but your body reacts. These tones are felt in the chest, in the bones, in your gut. They bypass the brain. Number 4. Reverse textures and time stretching. There are moments where musical elements feel reversed, or like they're being pulled backwards through time. A cello line might start and end normally, but reverse in the middle. A chorale swell might warp like melting wax. These techniques simulate temporal distortion, mirroring the way grief alters our perception of time. Cue breakdown. 3 key scenes. Let's zoom in on 3 specific cues from the film and explore how they function. Number 1. Charlie, opening scene. This cue plays over the miniature to real-life transition that opens the film. It begins with a soft shimmer of harmonics, then a low, slow-moving drone creeps in. There are no strings, no voices, just this massive sound, neither electronic nor acoustic, swelling gently under the surface. This mirrors the central theme, the blurring of reality and control. It also introduces the idea that something is already watching. It's both an overture and a warning. Number 2. Aftermath, Charlie's death. This cue doesn't start immediately after Charlie dies. The scene remains in silence, giving the audience time to sit in the shock. But when the score does return, it comes in with 1. Low moaning saxophone, 2. Swelling breathy textures, 3. A heartbeat-like thump. There's no melody, it's a dirge for a child, but it sounds like the funeral of the universe. The music doesn't console, it amplifies despair. Stetson gives us grief incarnate without sentimentality. Number 3. Reborn, final scene in the treehouse. This is the closest thing Hereditary has to a musical climax. As Peter, now Payman, rises into the treehouse, a chorale texture rises with him. Not angelic, not evil, just ecstatic. Voices rise, not in harmony, but in ritual unison. You can't understand what they're saying, but it's clearly worship. Then suddenly, the score drops out. Silence. Then a single line. Hail, Paimon. And the music doesn't return, because there's no tension left. The ritual is complete. How the score reflects the themes. Let's go meta for a moment. The score isn't just supporting the plot, it's mirroring the psychological and metaphysical layers of the film. Grief is shapeless, unresolvable, so the music is structureless, dissonant, unresolved. Possession is invasive, so the music mimics something foreign invading a body. Wind in the lungs, a hum in the bones. Ritual is sacred and ecstatic, so the final musical motif is sacred ecstasy, not horror. The brilliance of Stetson's score is that it refuses to behave. It won't make you feel better. It won't give you musical cues to guide your emotions. It just hovers, presses, and infects. It's not music for horror, it's music as horror. Final thoughts on the score. To close this segment, Hereditary is often praised for its visuals, performances, and themes, but Stetson's score is the unseen hand pushing you deeper into discomfort. It doesn't scream, it whispers with 1,000 mouths, and like grief itself, it doesn't leave when the movie ends. It stays with you. It lingers in your chest, in the silence, in the breath you didn't even realize you were holding. Colin Stetson didn't score Hereditary, he summoned it. Impact, criticism, and final thoughts. Hereditary changed modern horror. It proved that horror can be prestige without losing its primal fear, that a movie can win critical acclaim and make you afraid to turn off the lights. Aster has since made Midsommar and Beau is Afraid, both impressive, but Hereditary remains his purest vision. It's not for everyone. Its pacing, cruelty, and ambiguity alienate some, but for those it hits like a curse passed down through generations. Final thoughts, genre impact, and closing. Hereditary is not just a horror movie, it's a ritual both for the characters and the viewer. It hypnotizes, disorients, and finally transforms you. Its legacy is already enormous. It revitalized horror for a new generation, it launched Ari Aster into auteur status, and it challenged audiences to accept grief as horror. In a world full of horror tropes, Hereditary stands alone. It doesn't just scare, it haunts. It infects. And perhaps the most terrifying thing, it tells us we were never in control to begin with. It's okay, Peter. You're Payman now.